The U.S. has launched a devastating wave of airstrikes on Iran's Revolutionary Guard and militants in Iraq and Syria in retaliation for the drone strike that killed 3 U.S. troops. Multiple long-range bombers and drones hit 85 targets with 125 bombs over 30 minutes in the widespread military operation on Friday night ordered by President Joe Biden. As explosions rang out across the Middle East, the president said the payback strikes will continue at times and places of our choosings and warned militias, if you harm an American, we will respond. 2B1. Bombers flew from the U.S. for the mission hitting 7 facilities, 3 in Iraq and 4 in Syria, linked to the RGC and Iran-backed militias. The targets included command and intelligence centers and warehouses where missiles and drones were stored. Shocking footage from Al-Qaim, an Iraqi border town, showed rockets flying from a munitions factory believed to have been hit by American bombers at midnight local time. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights War Monitor said at least 18 pro-Iranian fighters were killed in eastern Syria, and Iraq called the strikes a violation of sovereignty. The huge operation is the first from the U.S. striking back after Iran-backed militias' deadly strike on the Tower 22 base near Jordan's border with Syria and Iraq last Sunday. Sergeant William Jerome Rivers, 46, Specialist Kennedy Laydon Sanders, 24, and Specialist Brianna Moffett, 23, were killed and more than 40 troops were injured in the attack that sparked further tensions in the Middle East. Biden ordered the strikes just hours after he attended the dignified transfer ceremony for the remains at Dover Air Force Base. It healed his hand over his heart as he watched their flag-draped coffins being carried across the tarmac after arriving back on home soil. A short time after the solemn ceremony finished, he authorized the huge response he has threatened for days. This past Sunday, 3 American soldiers were killed in Jordan by a drone launched by militant groups backed by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard's Corps Air Guide, Biden said on Friday. Earlier today, I attended the dignified return of these brave Americans at Dover Air Force Base, and I've spoken with each of their families. This afternoon, at my direction, U.S. military forces struck targets at facilities in Iraq and Syria that the IRGC and affiliated militia used to attack U.S. forces. Your response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. The United States does not seek conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else in the world. But let all those who might seek to do us harm know this. If you harm an American, we will respond. It's unclear what the next steps will be or when they will take place, or whether the days of U.S. warnings have sent militia members scattering into hiding. But the recent statement released by Kataib Hezbollah, one of the main Iran-backed militias, saying it was suspending attacks on American troops, had no impact on the administration's plans to retaliate. National Security Council John Kirby said earlier in the week response to the deadly drone strike will be a tiered and could potentially include multiple actions over a period of time. After the strikes, he said, these targets were chosen to degrade and disrupt the capabilities of the RGC and the groups that they sponsor and support. The goal here is to get these attacks to stop. We're not looking for a war with Iran. National security officials insisted the attacks were not timed to coincide with the dignified transfer, even though they took place an hour after the ceremony finished. The clear weather, they said, made Friday night the ideal time to launch the strikes across the Middle East. Lieutenant General Douglas Sims said the B-1 bombers that can 500-pound bombs and 8 air-launched cruise missiles made it the Middle East on a non-stop flight. Initial indications are we hit exactly what we meant to hit, with a number of secondary explosions associated with the ammunition and logistics locations the U.S. targeted, he said. We know that there are militants that use these locations, he added. We made these strikes tonight with an idea that there would likely be casualties associated with people inside those facilities. At 4 p.m. Yesterday, U.S. Central Command camp. Forces conducted airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards, Corps RGC's force, and affiliated militia groups. U.S. Central Command said in a statement, U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets with numerous aircraft to include long-range bombers flown from the United States. The airstrikes employed more than 125 precision munitions. The facilities that were struck included command and control operations centers, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, and unmanned air vehicle storages and logistics and munition supply chain facilities of militia groups and their RGC sponsors who facilitated attacks against U.S. and coalition forces. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who returned to work at the Pentagon this week after his secret hospital trip for prostate cancer treatment, reiterated that the U.S. did not want wider war. Following the attack on U.S. and coalition forces in northeastern Jordan this past Sunday that killed 3 U.S. service members at President Biden's direction, U.S. military forces today conducted strikes on 7 facilities, which included more than 85 targets in Iraq and Syria that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) and affiliated militias used to attack U.S. forces, Austin said Friday. This is the start of our response. The president has directed additional actions to hold the RGC and affiliated militias accountable for their attacks on U.S. and coalition forces. These will unfold at times in places of our choosing. We do not seek conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else, but the president and I will not tolerate attacks on American forces. We will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our forces, and our interests.